Hi guys, and welcome back to All Things Korean. This video is one that a lot of you have been waiting for. So last year when I first started my channel, I did a series of pronunciation videos for double consonants, and I did most of the double consonants except for one. And throughout this whole year and a lot of last year, you guys have been requesting this video, but for over a year I didn't do it, and I apologize for taking so long, but it's just because the consonant was really difficult for me to fully grasp, and I didn't want to make a video unless I understood it perfectly and could relate to it. And I still don't get it 100%, but I didn't want to put off this video too long. I didn't want to keep you guys waiting, so even though my explanation may not be perfect today, I hope it will still help you in some way. So, like the title suggests, the consonants that we're going to look at today are tiut, tiut, and sangjiut. These are the affricates of Korean. Tiut is the lax version, tiut is the aspirated version, and sangjiut is the tensed version. So they all take place within the same position within the mouth, but the way they are articulated is a little bit different. That's why they look similar in shape but not quite the same. Now before I jump into the explanation of this video, there are just two things I want to point out first. Number one, for ease of pronunciation, just to make it easier to explain, I'm going to add the vowel a to all three consonants, and for the rest of this video, I will be referring to them as cha, cha, and ja. And secondly, the explanation for these consonants is only pertaining to the word initial, because the sound kind of changes a little bit when they're in the middle of a word and also when they're at the end of a word. And if I included that as well, I feel like the video would be a lot longer, and this video is already going to be super long, I can already tell. So I won't be including that. But I think just explaining the sound of the word initial should still help you guys a lot. Okay, so with that said, let's head on to the explanation of the pronunciation of the Korean affricates, tiut, tiut, and sangjiut. So I said they are affricates, right? An affricate is a consonant that starts as a stop and ends like a fricative. It means it starts with a complete blockage of air, and then it kind of leads into a sound that has like a friction of breath. And if that makes no sense at all, let's just compare the Korean affricates to English affricates. So in English, there are two affricates. You have the J sound, j, and the CH sound, ch. And they have their own phonetic symbols and everything, but in this video, just to make it easy to understand, I'm going to call them the J sound and the CH sound. So what I'm going to do for this video is we're going to compare J with CH first. We're going to take a look at the English affricates. Then we're going to compare the English affricates just to the first Korean affricate, ta, or the lax version. And once we establish that, the differences there, then I will compare the Korean lax affricate to its aspirated and tensed counterparts. I will also leave a timestamp for everything in the description in case you want to jump to whichever sections of this video that you want to particularly focus on. Okay, so first let's look at J and CH. So these two affricates are kind of like opposites of each other in terms of two things, in terms of voicing and in terms of aspiration. So let's look at voicing first. Voicing refers to the vibration of the vocal cords when a sound is articulated. So for J, when you pronounce it in a word, it vibrates the vocal cords. If you say a word like J, or jar, or whatever, the vibration of the vocal cords starts from the get-go. But for CH, there is no vibration, which means it is an unvoiced consonant. If you say a word like charcoal or chat, the vibration starts when you reach the vowel part. When you articulate the actual CH sound, you won't feel a vibration over here. So J is voiced, CH is unvoiced. Another way that J and CH are opposites is aspiration. So aspiration refers to that burst of air you get out of your mouth when you're articulating a particular sound or consonant. So J is not an aspirated consonant, which means when you articulate it, you don't feel that burst of air. J, ja. But for CH, it's an aspirated consonant, which means that you will feel that burst of air. Cha, chat. So now that we have compared J and CH, let's compare those two to the Korean affricate, 지읒 or cha, and see which one it's more similar to. The short answer, let me just tell you from the beginning, is that it's neither one. This is why romanization is not a great idea, because there isn't a perfect match. So let's look at both voicing and aspiration. So in terms of voicing, ta or 지읒 is closer to ch in that it is an unvoiced consonant. So when you pronounce a syllable like ta, the vibration of the vocal cord does not take place. However, let's look at aspiration. And this is where it gets really tricky because it's neither one in this case. So the English J is completely unaspirated, whereas the CH is very aspirated. But this Korean lacks affricate, ta. It's a little bit aspirated. It's minimally aspirated. So you can't say that there is no aspiration at all, but it's not like super aspirated either, because we already have an aspirated version, ta. So what is ta exactly? When you're teaching it, like comparing it to romanization, some might explain it as like a softer CH sound, which means it kind of sounds like CH, but it's not as aspirated. And this might be a bit difficult to grasp, like the differences between a lot aspirated and a little aspirated, but it's something you'll have to practice, and I'll explain about this a little more when I compare ta with ta. So we talked about two aspects of the Korean affricate. We talked about voicing and we talked about aspiration. Now there are two other ways that English affricates are different from Korean affricates. So one other big difference between English affricates and Korean affricates is the protrusion of the lips. So when you pronounce English affricates, when you say like J or chat, it starts off with the lips protruding a little bit. I'm exaggerating a bit here, but look at my lips. J. Chat. But for Korean affricates, that does not happen. So try to keep your lips as neutral as possible. Like imagine that you're smiling or something and try to pronounce it without the lips protruding so much. Ta. Ta. Another way that English and Korean affricates differ is the position of the tongue. So as you can see, the phonetic symbols are different, which means that they are different consonants. And affricates generally, they're articulated with the blade of the tongue touching somewhere on the roof of your mouth. The exact place might be a little bit different, and apparently the English affricate is articulated with the tongue a little bit more forward, hence the different phonetic symbols. But rather than that, I think that's really subtle, and we're not linguists here, so I don't think I want to place too much importance on that. What I do want to focus on is where the tip of your tongue is touching. So when you're pronouncing English affricates, where does the tip of your tongue touch? Try to stop yourself right before you say J and focus on where the tip of your tongue is touching. Most likely it is not touching the teeth. So this part is where I got the most confused, because when I was looking at different resources for the pronunciation of English affricates, all of them said that it kind of starts off at the alveolar ridge. So it says that the tip of your tongue touches the ridge behind your upper teeth. That's where it starts. But for me, I couldn't relate to that, because when I felt my tongue, the tip of the tongue was touching my lower gums. And that just threw me into a lot of confusion, because I was like, am I pronouncing this consonant wrong? Have I been pronouncing it wrong my entire life? And I couldn't relate to this explanation, and I didn't want to put it in a video unless I could really agree with that information. But I found a book called Gimson's Pronunciation of English, and apparently a minority of English speakers do pronounce affricates with the tip of your tongue touching the lower gums. So it's not incorrect, and apparently I'm just a minority. when it comes to pronouncing affricates. But either way, the point is for this video, whichever method you pronounce the English affricates, it's not touching your teeth. In Korean, one big difference from English is that the tip of your tongue touches your lower teeth. This is information that I can also definitely relate to. In my experience, when I pronounce Korean affricates, the tip of my tongue does touch my teeth. This information I found in a book called The Sounds of Korean, and there is where I found the information about the protrusion of the lips and the tip of your tongue touching the teeth in Korean. So when we're comparing Korean affricates to English affricates, there are 4 things you need to consider. Number 1, there is no voicing. Number 2, it's minimally aspirated. Number 3, the lips are not protruding. And number 4, the tip of your tongue is touching your teeth. Now that was just the first consonant of the 3 that we're going to look at today. The rest I think should be a little bit easier now that we've got the fundamentals out of the way. So now let's compare the lax consonant to the aspirated consonant. We're going to compare ta and ta. For a lot of you, these 2 consonants might sound the same, and I can understand why. They do sound very, very similar. The only difference is the level of aspiration. So a trick that a lot of Korean teachers use is to put like a tissue or a paper in front of your mouth and kind of compare the levels of aspiration. When you say in English affricate like ja, the tissue should barely move. When you say the Korean ta, the lax consonant, the tissue should move a little bit. And when you say the aspirated consonant ta, then the tissue should move a lot. So just compare the levels of aspiration by determining how much the tissue or the paper in front of your mouth is moving. If you want a more complex explanation for that, you can Google something called voice onset time, which is the length between the release of a consonant and the onset of voicing. And the difference between the lax consonant and the aspirated consonant can also be defined in terms of voice onset time. So the lax consonant has a shorter voice onset time, the aspirated consonant has a longer voice onset time, but in my personal opinion, I don't think you necessarily need to know this because I've tried looking up some information on this on Google, and most of the information I got was academic papers. And I mean, if you're interested in the subject and you want to dig deeper into it, by all means, feel free to look for some literature on that particular subject. But if you're just interested in learning how to pronounce these consonants, I think just practicing with that tissue, hearing more native speakers, recording yourself and maybe comparing yourself to native speakers, those kind of practices should still help. I'm sure there are plenty of Korean learners who achieved great pronunciation without ever hearing the term voice onset time. So now that we've done the lax and the aspirated consonants, let's look at the last one, the double consonant or the tensed consonant ja. There is no aspiration for this one. So it's an unaspirated yet unvoiced consonant. So you can think of it kind of like an unaspirated CH. Another hint is in the classification. It's called a tensed consonant. And what that means is that right before you articulate it, the inside of your mouth is kind of tensed. Let me try to illustrate what that kind of means. So I couldn't find a lot of good examples in English, but one word I did think of that might help you is the phrase gotcha. This word is like, it's slang. It's a combination of got and you. But when you say gotcha, there is a cha in the spelling, right? But do you aspirate that cha? We don't say got cha. Also, we don't really release the T because it leads straight onto that cha part, right? We don't say got cha, we say gotcha. So when you say got without releasing the T, your tongue, it kind of remains in that tensed position. So gotcha. So try to keep your tongue tensed like that at the end of got, and then try to pronounce the Korean affricate ta from that state, and you should get a sound that's similar to ja. Got, ja. So this is the information I gathered for ta, ta. cha and ja. And if you stayed all the way to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching through the end. And just to finish off, I'm going to give you 5 words for listening practice. If you don't know the words already, try to distinguish whether they are the lax, aspirated, or tensed consonant. I'll give you 3 seconds for each word. Are you ready? Number 1, 차량. 차량. Number 2, 짜임. 짜임. Number 3, 자동. 자동. Number 4, 차단. 차단. Number 5, 자몽. 자몽. Okay, that was the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed that, give it a like and subscribe to All Things Korean for more Korean language and culture related videos. Then I'll see you in the next one. 다음 영상에서 만나요.
제발.